There was a time when climbing the stairs felt like second nature. You'd carry groceries up to the second floor without thinking. Knees that bent with ease, legs that carried you wherever you wished to go, to the garden, the bakery, a friend's house down the street. But then slowly, without fanfare, something began to change. The steps grew heavier. The knees ached a little more. One day, you found yourself gripping the handrail tighter than before. And one day, you hesitated at the base of the stairs, wondering if it was worth the effort at all. This slow loss of strength, of confidence, of freedom doesn't announce itself. It slips in quietly, and with it comes a deep frustration. You may be doing everything right, walking every day like the doctor recommended, trying to stay active, but your legs still feel tired. Your balance still feels shaky. You begin to wonder, is this just how it is now? But what if I told you that walking, while wonderful, isn't the full answer? That the legs, like the heart, need a little more to stay strong. Not harder work, not gym memberships, just a few small changes gently woven into the day. Movements so simple they barely feel like exercise, yet powerful enough to keep your independence. After all, our legs are more than limbs. They are the very foundation of how we move through the world. They carry our weight, our stories, our will to keep going. In Japan, Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived past 100, often said, "Keep your legs moving and your life will follow." And he didn't just say it, he lived it. He walked upstairs well into his 90s, not because he was lucky, but because he never stopped honoring the simple rituals that preserved his strength. Modern medicine is beginning to echo what our elders always knew. Dr. Andrew Weil, a pioneer in integrative health, reminds us that aging isn't just about what's written in our DNA. It's about what we do with our body each day. Muscles that aren't used slowly go silent, but those that are gently activated, even for moments at a time, remember, they come back, they hold us up. That's the hope I want to offer you today. Not with lofty promises, not with impossible routines, but with 4 small habits. Habits that don't require equipment. Habits that live in your chair, your kitchen, your nightly routine. Habits that might look ordinary, but quietly build the kind of strength that keeps you from needing help to rise from bed, or to reach the bathroom in time, or to walk through your garden again. These are not workouts, these are invitations to reclaim the strength still inside you, to listen to what your body is quietly asking for, to choose once again, to care for the legs that have carried you through so much already. Let's begin with the first. It only takes 30 seconds, but it might tell you more about your aging speed than any test you've ever taken. You might be able to walk for 30 minutes around the block, maybe even more on a good day. And yet, when it comes time to rise from a chair, especially one that sits low and soft, your hands search for something to push off. A table edge, the armrest, your knees strain. The motion feels heavier than it should, slower than it used to be. This quiet difficulty says more about your body than any stopwatch or treadmill ever could. Because walking, while important, often uses momentum. But standing up from a seated position, that's where true lower body strength is revealed. It's not about endurance, it's about power, control, the kind of strength that decides whether you'll be able to live on your own or depend on someone else to lift you tomorrow. There's a test some doctors use, though it's rarely mentioned. It's called the sit-to-stand test. You start seated in a chair and try to rise without using your hands. Then sit again, 5 times in a row, slowly, with balance. It doesn't matter how fast you go. What matters is how easily you can move your own weight. Studies show that those who struggle with this have a higher risk of falls, fractures, even earlier mortality. It's a quiet signal, not of failure, but of what needs care. But the test isn't just clinical. In many traditional Japanese homes, the ability to rise from floor cushions or low tables was part of daily life, not for exercise, but for meals, rest, prayer. This natural movement, standing from the ground, kept elders agile into their 90s and beyond, because their legs were never allowed to retire. You don't need a mat or a special seat to reclaim that kind of strength. All it takes is a pause. Before lunch, before dinner, sit in a sturdy chair, plant your feet, and rise slowly with no help from your hands. Then sit again. Not rushed, not forced. Just 5 quiet movements that whisper to your muscles, I still need you. It may seem too small to matter, but the truth is what you repeat shapes what your body remembers. Each time you rise without support, you teach your legs how to carry you again. You remind your knees of their job. You ask your hips to join in. Over time, these moments build not just muscle, but confidence. The kind that says, I can still do this, I can still rise. And in many ways, that's the most important strength of all, because your legs are your passport. The weaker they get, the smaller your world becomes. First you avoid the stairs, then the garden, then the evening walk, until even a trip to the mailbox feels far. But the opposite is also true. The stronger your legs become, even with just 30 seconds of effort, the more your world reopens. One stand, one step, one small reclaiming of all the places your heart still wants to go. There's a quiet moment in the day, often overlooked, when strength slips away, not because of illness, but because of habit. It happens in one of the most private spaces in the home, a place of routine, of relief, and, without most realizing, of gradual decline. In older age, many begin to lean forward when using the toilet. They reach for the wall or press their hands against their thighs to stand back up. It's done unconsciously, out of caution, fatigue, or fear of losing balance. But over time, this small reliance chips away at something far more essential, the body's natural ability to stabilize itself. Few people talk about it, but how we rise and lower ourselves, even in the most ordinary settings, directly affects our core strength, hip function, and pelvic stability. These aren't just anatomical terms. These are the very foundations that help us stay on our feet, to catch ourselves before a fall, to feel grounded in our own body. The truth is, the bathroom is one of the few places where we repeat a seated movement several times each day, and yet, it's rarely seen as a chance to preserve strength. When we rush, or support ourselves with our hands, we bypass the very muscles that are crying out to be used. The glutes go quiet. The inner thighs stop firing. The core, that deep belt of strength around the spine, becomes passive. But with a slight shift, that same moment can become one of renewal. Standing slowly, with weight balanced in the heels, wakes up the hips and thighs. Lowering down in a controlled way invites the body to stay alert. A small footstool placed nearby can help realign the spine and open the hips, returning the body to a more natural, ancestral posture. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. In many ways, the movements we repeat the most hold the most power. And sometimes nature's quietest calls become unexpected teachers. They remind us that stability doesn't begin in therapy rooms or fitness centers. It begins in privacy, in consistency, in the way we treat our own body when no one is watching. There's dignity in reclaiming that. Not just physical, but emotional. To stand without needing to brace, to rise without second-guessing, to feel the legs respond with strength, not strain. These are the things that seem small, until they're not. Because when the day comes that you can no longer stand on your own, life begins to contract, first in steps, then in choices. But when you strengthen your legs in the quiet corners of your day, even in the bathroom, you're not just protecting muscle, you're protecting freedom. One rise at a time, one silent, powerful moment of remembering. You are still capable. You are still connected to the ground beneath you. There is a quiet rhythm in the kitchen, the sound of water boiling, the scent of onions meeting warm oil, the familiar dance from counter to stove, stove to sink. For many, this room is not just where food is prepared, it's where memory lives. Recipes passed down without paper, the act of stirring, chopping, tasting. It's a kind of love that needs no words. But with time, even this cherished space becomes a challenge. The knees begin to ache after standing too long, the hips stiffen. What used to feel like a place of creation becomes a space of fatigue. You may find yourself sitting more during meals or rushing through cooking to spare your legs. The joy begins to dim. Not from lack of appetite, but from the silent weight of a body that tires too easily. Yet what few realize is that the kitchen holds more than warmth and memory. It holds a powerful opportunity for strength, not through extra work, not through strenuous movement, but through the subtle ways you shift your weight, the way you stand, the quiet choices made while waiting for water to boil or toast to pop. Instead of locking the knees and standing rigidly in one place, gently moving your weight from one leg to the other, like a slow march, keeps circulation flowing and muscles awake. It's a way of reminding your legs, even while doing something else, that they are still needed, still capable. In southern Italy, there's a story of a grandmother, now 76, who regained her balance simply by dancing while stirring. She never stepped foot in a gym. She never used the word exercise. But as she cooked, she shifted, she swayed, she stayed in motion. The kitchen became her training ground, and without planning it, she rebuilt her legs. A few extra movements added to the moment, like 10 gentle heel raises while waiting for the kettle, are not about counting or tracking. They're about intention, about sending a message to the lower body. You still have work to do. You still have life in you. And over time, these small invitations add up. They build endurance not just in the legs, but in the spirit. Because when the kitchen becomes your gym, every meal becomes a muscle memory. And every day, without carving out extra time, you begin to feel steadier. Not just stronger, but more alive in your own home. The kind of strength that doesn't separate life from movement, but makes them one and the same. In the end, healing doesn't always begin with big changes. Sometimes it begins while peeling garlic, while humming to yourself, while remembering that your body, even now, responds to care. And perhaps the very act of preparing food, with presence and movement, is one of the oldest medicines of all. There's a kind of silence that settles over the house at night. The dishes are done, the lights grow softer, the body begins to slow, to seek rest. And yet for many what follows is not deep sleep, but tossing, aching, stiffness. Mornings that greet you with heaviness in the knees, ankles that resist those first few steps, legs that feel as though they never truly rested. What few people realize is that this discomfort often begins before sleep, in the stillness that leads up to it. We slide into bed with legs that haven't moved for hours. We rest after a day spent mostly sitting, and then we expect the body to wake up refreshed, when in truth the muscles have gone cold, quiet, forgotten. In many traditional cultures, the body is gently prepared for sleep, not just the mind. In Okinawa, for example, elders stretch and move their legs before bed, not with force, but with intention. It's a ritual, a way to thank the body for another day, a way to keep the joints from hardening in the night. Modern science is beginning to agree. Gentle muscle activation before sleep, not intense, not exhausting, but slow and steady, improves blood flow, supports circulation, and reduces the morning stiffness that so many have come to accept as just part of aging. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing differently. Before sliding beneath the covers, lying back with calm and presence, lifting each leg slowly, one at a time, straightening it, holding it for a moment, breathing through it, and then lowering it with control. Not to strain, just to remind the muscles they're still there, still useful. 10 of these gentle lifts per leg can speak volumes to the body. They say, you are not shutting down, you are preparing to restore. And that message, given in quiet movement, can ripple into the night, into better rest, into easier mornings, into a body that begins the day not in protest, but in participation. Because how we end the day matters. A rushed bedtime, a body left untouched, often leads to sleep that doesn't heal. But when we close the day with motion, even simple motion, we invite the nervous system to settle, the joints to soften, the muscles to stay alive, even in rest. It's not about performance, it's not about checking a box. It's about honoring the transition from day to night and carrying care all the way to the pillow. In this way, sleep becomes not just a break from effort, but a continuation of healing. And the body, slowly but surely, begins to trust again. So you rise with less pain, with more ease, with a kind of quiet gratitude in your legs, as if they know you didn't abandon them, even in the final moments of the day. Strength is often misunderstood. We're taught to see it as something loud, visible, a flex of the arms, a long walk uphill, a body that doesn't falter. But real strength, especially after 60, is quieter than that. It's not about how much you lift. It's about whether you can lift yourself from the chair, from the toilet, from the edge of the bed in the morning. It's about whether you can move through your home without fear of falling, whether you can trust your legs to carry you one more day. Somewhere along the way, many stop trusting. Maybe after a fall, maybe after a winter illness that left the muscles softer than before, maybe after noticing the stairs now feel steeper, the garden bench harder to rise from. There's no shame in that. Aging brings these changes, but the mistake, the quiet tragedy, is believing there's nothing we can do about it. That loss is inevitable, that we must simply adapt to a smaller life, a slower pace, a shorter reach. But the truth is, the body never fully gives up on you, even when it aches, even when it feels stiff or tired. Beneath the fatigue, the muscles are still listening. They still respond to care, to movement. Not forceful, punishing effort, but gentle signals that say, you are still needed. That's why these 4 habits matter so much. Not because they promise miracles, but because they return movement to the places that have grown too still. When you rise from a chair without using your hands, even just once a day, you remind your legs of their purpose. When you shift your weight as you stir the soup, you engage muscles that would otherwise fall asleep. When you lift your legs slowly before bed, you don't just improve circulation. You offer your body the gift of being remembered. This kind of movement is deeply personal. It doesn't take place in a studio or on a mat. It happens in silence, in the corners of ordinary life. That's where strength lives now, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the final moments before you lay down for rest. These are not exercises. They are acts of preservation. Acts of resistance against decline that feels out of your control. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived for over a century, never stopped moving, not because he wanted to live longer, but because he understood that movement itself was life. He saw aging not as something to fear, but as something to prepare for, with small rituals, with care, with consistency. Dr. Andrew Weil echoes the same. He reminds us that resilience is not built through ambition. It's built through rhythm, through what we do each day without thinking, or rather by starting to think about those forgotten movements again. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to do everything at once. What matters is that you begin to see these ordinary actions as meaningful again. The act of standing, the act of shifting, the act of moving even when no one is watching. There is dignity in that. There is healing in that. Not the kind that changes everything overnight, but the kind that keeps you steady, keeps you safe, keeps you connected to yourself. Everyday movement is your medicine, not prescribed in bottles, but offered in moments, taken slowly, repeated gently. If you give it a place in your day, it will give you something in return. A little more steadiness, a little more peace, a little more of yourself still able to stand tall.